don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
What about endorsing us to sponsor you becoming a product yourself now? If that means slaving away your freedom of mind, freedom of choice, to trade it in for a hero, but it's really corporate worship, when it boils down to spending irresponsibly, and companies taking advantage of your consuming to fatten up your ideas and perception, for the comfort to ease the pain from the day-to-day, only to force you to fasten while fastening the moral compass. Ready to slim down your chances just to pick up the prices they're willing to pay.
It's more important to know how to interact with someone utilizing these personality traits than how to identify the traits of a person. Because when you can identify how to interact with a person, utilize
things that, like, just for an example, that two of the ladies would come over and tend to my...
You may very well be in a position where you need that exploration and experience. It's like that's going to be what it takes both for you to feel satisfied with the level of experience you have and also to get an opportunity to experience genuine consequences from it.
Own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Art muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, how they get it? If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got lanes closed. They got their strange machines. How did they get up there?
Yo. Happy Wednesday. Peace and blessings. Grateful, honor to the Most High. I hope all is well with each and every one of you. Shout out to my poets, writers, content creators, all the in-betweens. I give you your flowers, tip my hat off to you. I hope you staying warm and healthy. You know what day it is. You know what segment we got. I got Sydney in the building. I'm going to bring her up here in a second. Give her a warm welcome. Get your thinking caps. Get you something to sip on, maybe snack on while you digesting this material. It's an honor and privilege to have you here this evening with us. I'm going to turn it over to her. Let her do her thing. And I see y'all in a bit.
Hello, everyone. Apparently my hair's being really crazy today. I wanted to start this a little bit differently today. Usually I just go straight into my spiel, but I have a poem to start with to really put us in the mindset of thinking about the ocean. I wanted to do this topic this month because this on June 8th, which also happens to be my birthday, was World Oceans Day. And I know it's a tiny bit delayed, but there was a lot going on in the world news. So I wanted to talk about those things last time with the drought and El Nino and everything. But I still really wanted to do an episode on the importance of the ocean because I think we, as a culture, as a society, as a globe, or at least the more entitled parts of the globe, we take it for granted. And I don't think a lot of people recognize just how important our ocean ecosystem is to us. We rely on the ocean regardless of whether you live next to it or not. We rely on it for basically everything. And there's a lot that we humans do that directly impact and damage the ocean that we rely on, which is crazy. It's worse than shooting yourself in the foot. It's shooting yourself in the abdomen with how much the ocean does for us. So I have 2, possibly 3 poems I'll be reading interspersed throughout the video to kind of go with the information that I'm going to be given, because I want this to be just as much of an instructional one as an inspirational one, inspiring people to love and recognize the importance of the ocean as much as I do. For those of you that don't know me, I have my master's degree in environmental education, and the ocean is one of my areas of particular joy and love. Up until I went to college, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to work with marine mammals. I wanted to understand how the ocean worked, and I wanted to help animals, particularly ones in the ocean, because a lot happens to the ocean as a result of human activities. And it's always been a supreme passion of mine. So I thought, along with the information, I would also incorporate some of my imagery that kind of emphasizes why we should love the ocean so much. So the first one that I'm going to start with is called Current Consequences. Yes, pun intended. I have dad humor. The blue ballerina pirouettes blithely, bathed in glistening flames, with a celestial velvety kirtle engulfing her sepia frame. As turbulence surges around her in cerulean and gentleman's gray, the curtains of space spin around her like the torrents of a cosmic ballet. She rotates, propelled with delight, spurred on by a fervorous fire, twisting and tilting to bathe within the scintillating luminous display. As her billion-year-old lungs turn out to express the fluid passion inside her, winds blow about her as her existence explodes from this vibrant, divine vivifier. Early in life, after her pluvial phase, the heavens filled up her channels, flooding her streets, letting quickening take over the most sacred aquatic retreat. Jumping and jiving from pleated shores and diving ballroom dances down deep, out came the mortals of every function and form, ranging from microbes to mammals. Primordial emotional ties in the depths of her soul reunite with the crystalline skies. Insulation mixed with this frigid domain feeds her skin with carbon and krill. Fair fogs, venerable breathing, rhythmic tidal heart beating, raise life from the mire, birthing creatures and features on land and at sea, in harmony waltzing through time. Then one day came a new breed of critter, built on 2 legs, able but sinners. Vessels and drills, nets and harpoons, left waters embittered, exploited, deprived. Feeding from shorelines, then traversing the seas, arose the most savage of swimmers. In an infinitesimal fraction of time, the most invasive of beings had arrived. The soot-fed upheaval from the parasite plague abraded creation's remains, as the salt water upon her was poisoned and packed with unholy soils and acid. The patterns roaming from shallows to depths, cycles made to sustain, were broken by heat and freshwater displacement, making hereafter less placid. Our warm caress of avoidance turns to a sweltering we claim to deny, her disquieted dermis absorbing the hot apathy we mindlessly bake to a stain. As she gazes across a meaningless world with sad gray eyes open wide, the comedy that once divined her indigo skin faded to cyclonic disdain. Driven by greed and gluttony, we bleed our blessed coastlines dry. We shatter our world in a selfish attempt to become false gods of our Eden. Stealing from life with the smoke that we pipe, and unravel the shores we rely. As she swallows our homes in a reddening tide, we pretend that we aren't the heathen. So this first poem exemplifies a lot of the important characteristics of the ocean and the things that the earth, the ocean, provides to us. One of the big things about the ocean is it is immensely impactful on our lives. We all know the basics. We get fish from there, we get our oxygen from there. It helps drive our weather, and as a result, precipitation is able to happen across even areas that are nowhere near the ocean. But the impact that the ocean has on us is far, far more extensive than I think anybody realizes. Starting with the importance to the biosphere. The biosphere refers to the earth as a whole, the health of the planet. As we should all know, everything's interconnected. The way the rainforests are doing affect how the ocean is doing, affect how the deserts do, affect every living creature that relies on any of these systems. And as I said, the ocean is absolutely essential for the way that our biosphere acts and functions. That's the word. Currently, the ocean is home to about 80% of our biodiversity across the entire planet. I know a lot of people think, oh yeah, the rainforest has all the animals, stuff like that, but really the biodiversity comes in the oceans. I believe we have over 250,000 species in the ocean right now, and scientists estimate that's only a percentage of how many species actually exist. And these species that they've discovered range from microscopic planktons, which are basically microscopic animals, compared to phytoplankton, which are the plant varieties, all the way up to whales. And all of these creatures are an important facet of the ecosystem existing under the earth, under the ocean. Just like there's a famous story in Yellowstone where they removed the wolves and the entire ecosystem collapsed. I still need to do an episode on that. It's very fascinating. Long story short, they removed the deer and all of the other animal populations collapsed because the deer controlled the weeds, and then the animals that were it also kept down the pests, and it affected the beavers. They left because the plants changing their location changed the trees, and it's a whole cascade. It's so hard for me to explain in a minute, but I don't want to spend the episode just on this. But it's a similar effect where if you remove the plankton, you're going to collapse the entire ecosystem, because you have the fish relying on the plankton, you have the whales relying on the plankton, and if you don't have the fish, then you don't have the sharks, and you don't have the seals and sea lions and sea otters, and you don't have the bigger fish, and the bigger fish provide food for the bigger animals, the dolphin type animals. And I say that because killer whales and stuff like that, they're actually technically large dolphins. But everything relies on each other in the biosphere, but particularly in the ocean. And with the fact that the ocean covers about 70% of the surface of the earth, changes that happen in the ocean are going to affect the animals on the land as well. If you have less fish, then animals like bears that are not technically ocean animals, but are still relying on ocean born resources, are going to struggle. All of the birds are going to be affected by changes with the ocean, since a large proportion of them rely on particularly like shorebirds and aquatic birds, migratory birds, they rely on the ocean to supplement their diets, to supplement their ecosystem, to provide habitat for them. They are using bordering lands that are partially ocean, partially land, like wetlands, for their homes. It is immensely important for all creatures that live on Earth, even human beings. About, what is it? 61% of the world's gross domestic product comes from the ocean and coastal areas. The ocean economy is valued around $3 trillion. So $3 trillion of our economy is based solely around products that come from the ocean or are somehow related to the ocean. About 3 billion people rely on the ocean for their livelihoods and primary sources of protein, which means, what are we at? 9 billion people almost. So like a third of the planet requires the ocean as a source of both food and like daily sustenance. So if we were to traumatically damage the ocean in a way that it would not be able to provide for us, that would cause a indescribably deadly and just historical, like beyond historical famine. If we lost that amount of food, that would have extreme impacts on both the human population and the human economy. And I would not be surprised if something did happen and that we weren't able to get the resources out of the ocean like we can at this rate, if we saw a global economic collapse, because it is such a substantial component to our economy that losing those resources would be catastrophic. And when I say resources, of course we automatically think like, oh, fish and shellfish and, those things. But we also have to remember a lot of the other products that affect our food supply also come out from the ocean. Hey, go downstairs. Go downstairs. Go downstairs. Or go in grandma's room, one or the other. Don't be yelling. 5-year-olds. The products that come out of the ocean are not just limited to fish and things that we eat, but also stuff that we use on a day-to-day basis for all sorts of things. Most notably, at least in my opinion, is the nitrogen supplements and stuff like that. The chemicals and the additives that they use to create fertilizers that run agriculture, which is our secondary most crucial part. Like, we don't rely on going hunting anymore. Like, agriculture is where we get most of our food nowadays. And the chemicals that we use to create the fertilizers that help grow the food that not only feed us, but also the livestock that we also rely on eating, a lot of that comes from the ocean as well. A lot of the nitrogen and ammonia, I believe, that we use come from the ocean. And as a result, if you follow that up the chain, basically all of the food that we consume is coming from the ocean because of the chemicals and whatnot that minerals that we're able to get from the ocean. So even though the ocean doesn't directly produce all of the food, indirectly it does. Let's see. I'm gonna just see which know I'm forgetting a few. Phosphorus comes from the ocean. Also, sea salts, which we use. Magnesium is recovered from seawater, as well as bromine. In certain parts of the world, the table salt is primarily obtained by evaporating seawater. Also, desalination. A lot of areas of the world rely on the ocean to provide them with fresh water because they're a desert location, such as in the Middle East. And so they rely on desalination plants. So we want to have healthy water so we can drink that water, because some things cannot be removed from water, or at least not easily. Let's see. The most abundant ions in seawater: chloride, sodium, sulfate, magnesium, calcium, potassium, all of which are important for our diets, as well as the creatures and plants that we produce to feed ourselves. Let's see, carbon, bromide, boron, strontium, fluoride, phosphorus, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, oxygen, argon, all of these are coming from the ocean. So a great abundance of chemicals that we use in the industry, in the agricultural realm, are coming from the ocean in one way or another. So yeah, a breakdown of our oceans would be quite catastrophic. It's something that we really cannot fathom. And that is just for our economy. That's not even factoring in the impacts that it would have on the global biosphere system if that amount of habitat and wildlife was destroyed. Another reason why we want to preserve the ocean is because of its impact on the physical aspects of our biospheric system. The oceans maintain our climate, they drive our weather, they drive currents that shift rain to locations that need it. And without the ocean's presence, we would see a collapse of the weather patterns that we know of today, which again, our agricultural systems and our own water needs are met by. And if you had a collapse of the ocean system, it would affect how these weather conveyor belt systems function. It may not seem like how could the disappearance of animals or the degradation of the water possibly impact actual weather, but you have to consider that the conveyor belt inside the ocean, driven by changing temperatures of the water, are also affected by the salt content, the chemical content, and the biological content as well. If animals are a small degree, they have an impact on the cycling of the ocean. They deliver specific nutrients to the ocean through their excrement and death. They provide, like animals that are at the bottom of the ocean, they like shift the soils and mess with the bottom of the ocean, which like kick up stuff into the water column. Just the existence of these animals and them interacting with the environment and producing biological components and releasing it into the ocean. All of these things have an impact, often small, but when you magnify it and it's applied to billions of mass. What's the word? Not pounds. There's a word for it. Biomass. When you apply it to the entire biomass of the ocean, it has a pretty significant effects. The types of in the same way that, like, cows fertilize the fields, and them digging into the ground helps turn over the soil. Animals in the ocean have a very similar impact on the ocean itself, and removing certain species from the system can actually affect the quality of the water and the nutrients that exist in those regions, and it can actually end up changing the not geography, but like the rocks and the substrate itself. Again, with the Yellowstone reintroduction of wolves, the deer would be limited where they could go because of the presence of wolves. And so when the wolves were removed, killed off, they were able to just trample the land. And as a result, they would like trample plant life and stuff like that. And it actually ended up changing the the rivers themselves, where the rivers would get flattened and weren't as like steep and rocky, and so they flow differently and stuff like that, just because the deer trampling the land affected what animals could be there, what plants could be there. We for sure underestimate the power that just simple creatures can have. Gophers are important for our land because they, aerate the soil, they dig into the soil, they add in their own versions of fertilizer. It's the same in the ocean. And if you think about it, in the ocean, it's even more of an impact because it's all connected. All of the oceans are connected. And so what one animal does on one side of the globe can still have, albeit minute, butterfly effect, but it's going to still have an impact on what's happening on the other side of the globe. So yeah, the ocean itself is it affects everything. If we don't have a healthy ocean, we're going to have different systems of weather. It's going to change. It's going to change the location that people are getting precipitation. This is why climate change is such a huge problem, because the ocean and climate change are so intimately connected. The hotter the atmosphere gets, the hotter the ocean gets. The ocean is significantly darker than clouds and the sky, and also because water molecules are closer together than air molecules, they're able to hold in more heat. And so our ocean is taking the brunt of all of the warming. I think the number is like 80 to 90% of warming has gone into the ocean. And so the oceans are protecting us. They are keeping the earth at a cooler temperature than it would have been if things were different. For example, Venus, Mercury. It is hot and dry, and their temperatures are hundreds of degrees on land. Like, I think it's like 300 degrees on a daily basis. But they don't have oceans. And so the whole planet is able to just roast because there is nothing there to absorb all of that extra heat. And so the ocean is actually taking most of this warming and putting it into its depths. But that has an impact because as you heat up water, its circulation changes. And when you change the circulation of the ocean, you're going to change the circulation of the air above it, and its interaction with the land and stuff like that. Hotter, warmer waters are going to be more productive in terms of producing storms. More storms is going to increase erosion on land. Also, warmer waters are going to be more dangerous to the things living in them. And as our waters warm, we're already seeing this with corals. Things like algae and other types of animals are going to overheat because they're not, or they're going to have to dive deeper. They're going to have to dive to locations that they normally wouldn't live in because the heat has gotten too much for them. It's important to keep in mind that heat is not an invisible, it's not just a nuisance, it affects our bodies. The warmer things are, the more energy you have to use to function, to remove this heat. And you can end up basically overheating your muscles and your brain, trying to get rid of this heat. And that's why it makes us sluggish and stuff like that, because movement creates heat in our muscles. And if our muscles are already hotter than they should be, we're not going to want to do things. And if you are a creature in the ocean that relies on either water to take away heat from your bodies, such as in the case of corals, where they can't move, they'll basically sunburn and die. That's what coral bleaching is. They get so hot that the algae that they have a relationship with, the algae are responsible for building their skeleton structure and provide their energy. Without the when they get too hot, the algae dies or it gets expelled, and so then the corals die because the things providing them energy are gone. And on the flip side, we have other animals in the ocean that have to keep moving to survive, whether you're a mammal and you have to keep going up to the surface or going on land to breathe, or fish and sharks and other types of animals that have to move through the water column to flush their gills and provide them oxygen from the water. Both of them are also going to be affected by increased ocean heat, because it's the same as like if you're exercising in a hot gym, you're going to get tired much, much faster. You're going to use up more of your energy. You're going to be more sluggish. And if you are something relying on movement to breathe, or you need your energy to get away from predators and or food, and all that extra effort, or not effort, the drag on your system is going to make it much harder for you to actually survive. And so as we're seeing this increase in temperatures in the ocean, we're seeing an increase in extinction, or I shouldn't use the word extinction, the death of animals because they're not able to cope with the heat. It's not been proven yet, but there is speculation that some whale beaching events where many, almost entire pods throw themselves on land and pass away, is because of heat disorientation. Not at all the cases, but there's a theory that might be part of the problem. Yeah, the temperature that our oceans are at are going to affect the survival of all of the species that live in there. And just like us, just like animals on land, every animal has a window of safe temperature, where if it goes below a certain temperature, they'll die. If it goes above a certain temperature, they'll die because their physical bodily form cannot handle the impacts of the heat or cold on their bodies. And as we continue to warm the planet, we're going to see more and more incidences where entire species are being killed off because the temperatures are too hot. We're already seeing marine heat waves right now where entire swaths of the ocean are getting too hot and are killing everything within the area. And that's going to have a really severe impact on the biodiversity web, and also on our food supply, because a lot of the food that we rely on are coming from the upper part of the water column, and that is the area that's most susceptible to this type of heat, these types of heat waves, and as a result, it's going to also affect the deeper layers of the ocean as well, because if you the things at the bottom of the ocean are relying on the organic matter that's coming from the top part of the ocean. There's something called marine snow, where organic particulates, whether it's scales coming off fish or poop from all of the animals that possibly exist up there, the dead plant matter and algae matter, and the remnants of animals that had been eaten by something else, dead bodies of things. As all of that sinks to the bottom, that is what feeds the creatures at the very bottom of the ocean. And so if you are significantly affecting the ocean at the top layers, you're also subsequently going to be affecting the bottom layers of the ocean as well. Even though we think like, oh, they're thousands of meters apart, but anglerfish will get affected by what happens to dolphins, even though they don't live in the same spots. Everything in the ocean, as I said, is interconnected. So yeah, besides affecting the biosphere, and the creatures, the ocean heat is also going to start affecting the rain belts and the systems that we ourselves also rely on land. As I talked about in the previous episode, or a couple episodes ago, about the AMOC collapse and the El Nino, when we have changes to our global ocean surface due to temperature changes and current changes, that has an impact on what happens with the rain elsewhere in the world. If you have changes in the ocean in the Atlantic, you're going to see changes in the rain that comes to people in sub-Saharan Africa. If you have changes to currents around Britain, you're going to see changes in China. Everything is interconnected, and as we have the ocean changing how it circulates and how it moves, that's also going to start impacting the types of water resources that people are also able to get. You're going to have changing locations of storms, storm tracks, and where things typically go. And so certain areas that may have relied on water coming in at certain times in certain amounts for centuries are going to start seeing, or are already seeing, trains of storms dodge them and go somewhere else because the currents and systems have changed. So even without affecting the living creatures, it's still going to have an impact on our access to agricultural products, our success with the economy. Okay, tell grandma. Go tell grandma. So it's super, super important to consider the ocean when we're thinking about climate change, because even though it's not like climate change isn't connected with the ocean in people's minds, it is inextricably connected. There's no way that you can separate the two, because how our climate warms affects how the ocean functions, and how the ocean functions determines how well everything else on land does. The reason why our planet is so successful in terms of the diversity of life, the production of life, the ability to support life, is because of the ocean. It's not the atmosphere. The ocean helped create the atmosphere. And so you cannot have one without the other. And I think that's something that people take for granted. People do not think about the value of the ocean besides the how nice it is to stand by a beach or how cool it is to go fishing. Um, and it's something that humans really need to think more about, because the more we damage the ocean, the more we're damaging our own futures and the futures of our children. Um, as I said, and also the interactions between the ocean and our coasts also protect us. When we have things like wetlands and marshes, which are basically the kind of in between where it's wet land, hence the name, that is a buffer between the dry land and the ocean itself. These actually prevent severe impacts of storms because they're able to absorb flooding. If you have wet land, it is physically set up to absorb more water, and it, with the plants and the types of trees they have and stuff like that, those types of living things are set up to enjoy that type of wetness, that saturation level. And so when you have hurricanes are the best example. When you have hurricanes coming in, and if there's a buffer of wet land between the ocean and the communities, you're going to see less damage to the communities because, one, those trees are going to break apart the wind, and so you're not going to get as severe wind impacting the community once it does come in further, because usually the worst impacts are going to be right on the edge of shore, and then as the hurricane moves in, it'll decrease in intensity as it loses its energy. And so it creates a wind buffer. It also produces a flooding buffer, and so a lot of that flooding will be able to go out into the wetlands, and both from the land and also directly above, which reduces the amount of flooding that would exist or persist in the communities themselves. And then they also serve as a kind of like a drainage system as well. So once the hurricane is over, that water has a place to go that is not just sitting on top of the streets. So the health of our ocean, the health of our ecosystems also play a role in this, because if we don't have healthy wetlands, if we've been ripping out the trees, if we don't have, if we're building our cities right up to the edge of where I grew up, they filled in the wetlands in a substantial portion. And to this day, places like Marin County, I think, towards San Francisco. There's one city in particular. Let me see if I can find it. But all of these areas are built on what is meant to be wetlands. And so now the cities are actually sinking into the areas where they put in landfill. And also building landfill. I don't mean landfill like trash dump site. I mean, they literally filled in with land. If you're building cities on landfill, which is not as hard packed and stable as normal land, during earthquakes, you'll also get severe liquefaction because the land is going to settle into that location. Kind of the same way if you tap a cup of powder, it'll tamp down. It's kind of the same effect. Let's see. too hard, but I thought it started with an M. But yeah, there's a city right now that is dealing with daytime flooding, which is where, blue sky flooding, where you have flooding even if it's not raining. But yeah, it's cool. There's maps that you can find on Google of what areas have been like covered over. So if you're curious what the Bay Area kind of looked like and where the wetlands used to be, it's pretty interesting. There's some good maps out there. I think it was the Marina District. San Mateo, maybe Redwood City. But yeah, like all around where San Francisco is, that all used to be wetlands. Huge wetlands. We used to have thousands of birds that would migrate from Oregon down to Mexico, and they would use these wetlands as their home. And then in the, I think it started around the early 1900s, but really magnified towards the 1950s. They filled all of those in with land to put cities on. So yeah, I always find that really sad. As someone that loves to look at the history of an area, it always makes me a bit sad to see what we have done to the natural ecosystems that used to be there, and seeing the ugly cities in their place. But yeah, the land itself also protects us. If you have healthy wetlands, you actually reduce the damage that your city sees as a result of storm action. They can also serve as wave breaks, where instead of your house getting directly hit by the waves coming straight from the ocean, if you have this buffer of land, the waves will crash into the wetlands instead of homes, and thus protect your cities as well. So yeah, there's a lot of functional benefits to protecting the fringes of the ocean as well, and its ability to protect the cities that we've built, as opposed to putting it in places where they're not as resilient. So I always think of the homes on the West Bank. I forgot which location it is, but in North Carolina, South Carolina, people will put their houses on stilts, like right on the beach. And whenever they show videos of hurricanes going through those areas, they always show those homes getting completely battered by the wind and rain, and waves. And I never ever can understand why someone would want to live there. Like, cool, you're on a beach, how wonderful is that? But if you know that hurricanes are going to be there, I don't understand why you want your house to be there. It just does not make sense to me. But what can I say? I live on God's Etch-a-Sketch, as Robin Williams had said once. So I have another poem I'll fit in, and then I'll do a little bit of a spiel at the end. This particular one I wrote to talk about bleaching events, which I discussed a little bit ago. When it gets too hot, coral reefs or corals will expel the algae inside them that makes them a living creature, leaving just their skeletons if you don't fix the problem fast enough. So this one is written to exemplify the diversity that exists in coral reefs, and then the consequences of our actions on these coral reefs. And then I'm going to end with a short discussion of a lot of the stuff that we do to the oceans that affect everything, how healthy everything is, and then bits and pieces of what we can do. So this one is called Whitewash Execution. The most majestic gardens bask in blue, graced with the spectrum of broken light. This old new world builds upon the past, a living Cleopatra, absorbing surges and squalls. Like an ornate and luxurious antique ring, a silver cincture of aquatic heaven wraps earth in a brilliant display of every hubris and hue. Stretching like fungus and stalagmites into the tourmaline undersea universe, jellyfish grids made of origami and clay cover salty seabeds like moth-bitten quilts, spinning sugared sunshine into organic cities. Primordial legends layered in limestone legacies as living temples of fish, flowers, and flesh. The splashy Salmagundi seaside chateaus emerge as opulent monolith villas, rising to the heavens with a rainbow-like glow, resting on sedimentary foundations of silted time. Marine residents flit through these perennial towns like silver zealots and striped disciples, praying to an all-loving tropical god. These orchards upon which life relies face a hot seat, a trial they do not deserve, punishment for crimes they are not liable. For they absorb the soda fizz and solar mist we entitled to haunt Neptune's cathedral. After ripping out her ribs to sell at a shop just for bragging rights on tabletops, her bleach blonde generational carbonate curse becomes a hot mic for the communities we deprive. In waters that intermingle with the hottest sun, heat-treated heads lose their purples and reds, boiling in putrid plastic stew and ocean oil slicks, in roiling turquoise, hell-bitten heaven. The 10,000-year-old animals, our human families admired from canoes, now lay in waste, fragmenting to powder, expelling the zoolanthe that designed them, boneyards and catacombs dedicated to our omission, fade away with the frost, breaking apart like the ice, pockets picking profit as fortune decays away. And to add on to the importance, even though coral reefs only cover about 0.2% of the ocean floor, they're home to a quarter of all marine species that exist, and they support the livelihoods of about 500 million people. Additionally, 80% of reefs right now are facing widespread bleaching events, which can result in the deaths of these corals. And that was from a quote from 2025. The coral reefs are just another threatened part of our oceans. The wetlands, the coral reefs, these are all very fragile parts of our ocean that have a massive impact on the health of the ocean overall. And it's really important for us to understand the impact that we have on the ocean, because as I said in the beginning, or in this stream, we need the ocean. There's no way around it. We cannot have a healthy earth, a healthy agricultural industry, a healthy economy, a healthy biosphere, a healthy earth if we do not have the ocean. And we impact the ocean in so many different ways. I'm going to have to do a whole other episode just talking about the ways that we impact the ocean. That's how important this topic is. The ocean itself needed a whole episode just to talk about why it's so important. And we'll need a whole other one just to talk about what we do to the ocean. But just as a synopsis of how we impact the ocean, we impact in multiple different ways, categories of ways. Also, I forgot to mention an interesting fact. I would have had to say it way at the beginning, but most of the oxygen the ocean produces half of our planet's oxygen, and most of this oxygen is produced in the top 500 or 656 feet of the ocean surface, just as a result of algal and bacteria photosynthesis. So our own breath is provided by the top layer of the ocean that is primarily impacted by human behavior. So as I said, there's a lot of different ways that we affect the ocean. One of the biggest players in this is the fishing industry. The fishing industry, ironically, is, though reliant on the ocean, is also responsible for a large number of problems that contribute to biodiversity decline and conditions declining in the ocean. With larger animals, a lot of them are affected by overfishing, where we take out more from the ocean than we are able to replenish. So we're killing off the animals faster than they're able to come back. We also have a problem called bycatch, where oftentimes fishermen will be hunting for a certain type of fish crop, and will end up killing a bunch of other things instead. Most famously, sea turtles. I mean, even on if anyone's seen Finding Nemo, the example in the first movie where they get caught in the net along with all of the, I think they were like trevally or something like that, the big silverfish, when they're like, swim down. That's bycatch, where things that shouldn't be caught in the net are accidentally caught in the net instead. It often happens with things like dolphins, sea turtles, who are trying to go after the fish that are being fished for. It can happen with whales, seals. It can happen with other smaller creatures. Like, you're obviously going to get other fish that they don't really care about, that aren't marketable. You're going to be getting like anything in the water column, jellyfish, sharks. If it's not meant to be a crop desired by the fishermen, they'll usually just throw it back, and by that point they've usually died. So bycatch is a huge problem as well. They've been trying to engineer different nets that allow animals like sea turtles and dolphins and stuff to escape, but it still doesn't stop it from still happening. Additionally, you'll have what's called ghost nets, where sometimes if a net gets stuck or it breaks or whatever, the fishermen will just cut it off and it'll float. And as it floats through the water, it can wrap around animals like sea turtles and dolphins and sharks. It's usually big creatures, because those are the ones that are big enough to actually get stuck in the net, as opposed to just like swimming through it. But again, it does happen to other types of animals. Birds are another victim. They'll get their heads stuck in the nets. And particularly malicious are the plastic wire, plastic thread type nets, because they can like cinch around the neck. They can cut off circulation. They can cut into the skin I've seen some pretty gnarly injuries on seals and sea lions, sea otters, of like they're literally losing their limb because it acted like a tourniquet. Stray lines can also do this. Stray fish hooks, they can also have an impact. There are certain types of fish certain types of fishing where they release a long line of just hooks down the line, and then they like drag it, and that can catch animals that it doesn't intend to catch. Trawling, where they drag a net at the bottom of the ocean, usually to get stuff like crustaceans, lobsters, crabs, stuff like that. That rips up the bottom of the ocean and damages things like shellfish, mussels, clams, stuff like that. It can rip up homes of animals that are living in the sand, and it acts as a source of pollution because it kicks up the dirt. And then obviously it can catch things that it's not meant to catch. Another thing, which is not limited to the fishing industry, but basically just any of the ocean-based transportation groups, whether it's shipping, fishing, military, you name it, just for fun. Boat strikes are another component to animal deaths in the ocean. Whales, dolphins, sharks, seals, they can get hit by boats that are coming above them and cause catastrophic damage to them, to their bodies, and kill them. And then the age-old problem of pollution, all of the stuff that we put out into the ocean, everything we wash off our cars, off our driveways, off of our hands, anything that ends up going down the drains are usually going to end up going to the ocean in some way, shape, or form. We also have chemical spills, oil spills that come directly from things that are being transported across the ocean, whether it's the ship itself has an oil spill or it spills things off the side of the boats. We have people that illegally dump things. We have there's even illegal dumping sites from decades ago, 40s, 30s, 20s, that are still leaching chemicals into the ocean today, that are still having an impact. They just found off the coast of San Diego an entire dumping site with hundreds of barrels of DDT, which is a extremely deadly toxin used to kill off bugs back in like the 30s, 40s, but they've since banned it because it was killing off birds by affecting their egg production, and the eggs were getting too thin, and basically the moms would crush the eggs when she sat on them. And they have found a dumping site with hundreds of these barrels that are slowly releasing DDT into the water. We also have dumps and landfills, actual landfills that border the ocean and gradually release trash into the ocean. We all know about the microplastic pollution problem, where we have plastic going out into the ocean at rates that far exceed what we're able to fix. And this stuff can be ingested by animals. It can get them stuck. It can, the micro particles can get into the cells of just about anything. And when you have stuff like that at a microscopic level getting into the cells, it affects your DNA, it affects how your genes function, and it can tell your body to do different things that it was not meant to be doing. And so it can affect fertility, it can affect cancer rates, it can affect the body's ability to function, the lifespan, the functioning of organs. It's, again, a whole episode could be dedicated just to the effect of plastics the ocean. And then we humans also affect the ocean with our overconsumption habits. We pull things out of the ocean at record rates to feed ourselves, to fulfill our desire for cool stuff, our like the curio industry. Instead of shells getting left on the beaches to be recycled and turned into nutrients for the other animals, it instead gets taken and used for jewelry. Animals are killed specifically for their shells, or their body parts to resell as jewelry, curios, cool little tchotchkes at vacation sites. Us going to ocean locations also affect the animals. Just our presence being there can scare creatures away. Walking around and like it let's say like in a tropical region, like if you have a lot of beach guests, beach visitors, they can trample the land, and so corals and crustaceans and seaweeds and other creatures that are usually relying on coastal sites for their homes, if we're walking all over it all the time, it's going to prevent that creature from being able to have its home. We destroy the homes. We our noise levels, our lights from our cities, all of these things have an impact on where creatures feel comfortable living. Animals that are stressed out very easily, such as seabirds, particularly nesting seabirds, nesting turtles. They're very, very susceptible to human activity. Just being around is enough for them to decide not to go to that beach anymore to lay their eggs, which is highly problematic because most migratory animals choose to return to the same beach every single time because they know it and they're comfortable with it. And if humans have invaded, they don't feel comfortable bringing their babies there, and may choose locations that are unsafe or may not have them at all because they don't feel safe. So our physical presence also is going to have an impact on how animals are able to interact with the environments that they rely on. Additionally, all of the trash that we leave behind, even if it's not plastic trash, stuff like metal cans and stuff can injure wildlife that steps on it or eats it, or like we leave behind food that they shouldn't be having, and so we have animals that should not be dependent on human food are becoming dependent on human food, such as seagulls, the most notorious example. But there are a lot of animals that have shifted their dietary preferences because they can rely on human trash over the food that they naturally would eat. And yeah, so just our existence has a tremendous impact on how the ocean functions, how the shorelines function, and how healthy they are. We kill native wildlife, we kill native plants, we remove things that used to be part of the ecosystem as an important recycling factor. Those broken shells used to become nutrients for other animals as that stuff broke down. The shells that people collect that turn into jewelry now would have been homes for hermit crabs and other types of animals. So we, just by being there, are going to be affecting the ocean in a small way. And so, unfortunately, a lot of these problems that I've talked about, and we'll have a whole episode dedicated to, we can't really do anything about. We can't do anything about the fishing industry. We can't really do anything about the shipping industry besides voting for people that actually care to do stuff about this. We can, if we have those skills, getting involved in organizations that are pushing for laws to change these things, to ban these behaviors, is an area that you can help if that is something that you are really passionate about and maybe have a skill for. But as I said, a lot of this is an industry standard type of thing that will require mass action as opposed to just individual behavior. But there are some things that we still can do. Switching your use of products to biodegradable products instead of using plastics, try and use glass and bamboo and things that are biodegradable, because then you reduce the plastic load in the ocean. If enough of us show companies that we don't want products that are made out of plastic, it'll eventually become not worth it for them to make these products. And so we can show our support there. We can also show our support by by supporting companies that actually support the ocean. There are some that are better than others. I definitely like to support ones that direct a lot of their stuff to education or actually like hands-on type stuff. Like I like 4Ocean. I also just like supporting my local aquarium or the aquariums that I grew up with. But I prefer to focus on the ones that are more interested in education rather than selling products. But yeah, supporting organizations that do things for the ocean, that actually try and make a difference with the money that they're getting from people, and aren't just doing it to get a buck. When you're on the beach, try to, or what some of the things I do, I'll pick up trash that I see on the beach, specifically plastic trash, and remove that, throw it away. I also practice the what's the take only pictures and leave the rest or something. There's a quote for it, but basically, like, I don't take seashells and stuff like that. I leave those behind. I take pictures of things that I find cool. I don't try and keep things from the ocean because it's going to be recycled into something useful for the creatures that are there. I also am cognizant about where food comes from. It's important for both your health and the health of the ocean, because there are some creatures that aren't actually safe for you to eat in certain capacities. So being more mindful of the food that you're choosing to eat, if you have the option to, is also beneficial. Their Seafood Watch is run by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and it's a really good resource for people that eat seafood a lot to balance the choices that they're making, because there are some foods, some fish and locations to get the fish that are better for the earth than others, and so it helps you weigh the choices of eat this, not that. So that one's called Seafood Watch. And again, I'm going to do another episode on how we impact the ocean, just to go more into depth about all of the different ways that we affect the ocean, because there's so much more I could have said. And in that, I'll go over more of like what you can do, who to watch out for, what to pay attention for. But I just wanted to at least get in how we impact the ocean. So as a consideration of, in contrast to how much the ocean does for us, we return the favor by doing things to her. And I always say her for the ocean, because I always like to emphasize that the ocean is alive. The ocean is an organism on her own. And we cannot forget that. The ocean, the earth, all of these systems, they are a living being, and we have to take care of them if we want to survive. Because just like we humans, we are a being, we have to take care of our liver. We have to take care of our brain. We have to take care of our heart, because if those are malfunctioning, the rest of our body is not going to work properly. And the same thing applies to the earth, where we cannot separate the forest from the oceans, from the atmosphere, from ourselves, because we are all interconnected and we need each other just as much as the ocean needs us to exist. So we have to pay attention to our habits and how we impact the life around us, because that is going to have an impact on how we do and how we survive as well. So I will end finally with a short little poem that was based on the first image that we've ever gotten of the Earth from space. This picture was taken in 1968, I believe. And it was the first time that we saw the ocean from space, and from, like, you know, when you're looking at something from far away, it gives you a different perspective. And yeah, so I wanted to end with that poem, just to give a little more positive ending rather than ending on, yeah, this is how we mess up the earth. So this last one is called Earthrise. For a moment in time, mankind was cemented, mesmerized, transfixed, anxiously to the tube. This would be an experience all would cling to during a time when there was no faith, no hope. Heroes were stolen when we needed them most. As hostile battles raged in fields and on streets, taking the lives of the mindless and the innocent, politicians spewed media myths in blistering rain as chemical warfare was transferred to homes, despite civilians, servicemen marching for peace. But in '68, on Christmas Eve, we were confronted with our fragility, our insignificance, our impermanence, as we finally touched the sky. We sent out our best men to circle round Selene. Unlike our own home, this empty satellite friend has nothing to offer besides data and dust. The atmosphere, the temperatures, no forest of trees, just peaks and valleys pocked with billions of rocks. Nonetheless, shining with illustrious substance, glowing with promise, with help from the sun. And from this meager horizon, a planetary reveal. Embraced within the black translucence of space was our jade and cobalt marble rising with grace. Through the round portal of human endeavor, dressed in whipping white storms and blue seas, was our world, our home, captured within a photograph, a time capsule, a moment that for a little while united us all. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something new. Hope you were inspired to do a little bit more for the world around us. And I can't wait to revisit this discussion about the ocean in a later episode, to kind of go more into depths of what is happening in our ocean world. And yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the week. I will be back on Monday. I'm going to be somewhere on Friday, but, or actually I'll be here Friday. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys again. And again, I hope you enjoyed the show.
Own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
Our muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
You see it on the bridge. Wait, how they get it? If the government had to change the screw in the bridge, they had to shut it down. They got state troopers out there. They got lanes closed. They got their strange machines. How did they get up there?